In this video tutorial, I'm going to show you how to use QM for Windows and Microsoft Excel to solve a preemptive code programming problem. Let's take an example here where we have two type of computers, CP400 and CP500s to be manufactured, to be produced weekly. The CP400 uses two memory modules and no external hard drive, whereas CP500 uses one memory module and one external hard drive, and both models use one case. And some other statements are also given that suppliers can provide these many memory modules, these many hard drives, and these many cases, and the time that it takes to manufacture produce one CP400 and CP500, that is also given along with their profit. And these are the goals actually, with the priority that meet a state contract of 200 CP400, meet at least 500 total computers weekly, make at least 250 computers, $250,000 weekly, and use no more than 400 man-hour per week. As you know, whenever we have goals, we can actually convert them into the deviation variables. We have to convert them into equality. We have to introduce the deviation variable. So the decision variables now become the original two variables, which are the number of computers to be produced weekly, CP400 and CP500, and we also have the corresponding deviation variable uh, to the each goal. The functional constraints here are the, for example, availability of the memory module. As I said earlier, it takes two memory modules to in the CP400 and one memory module in CP500. That's why this is 2x1 plus x2. It cannot exceed what is available to us. So 1000 memory modules are available to us. Similarly, availability of external hard drives, only CP500 uses an external hard drive, and we have in total 500 external hard drive with us. And case is basically both the CP400 and CP500 use the case, one case each, so that is why uh, one case for CP400 and one case for CP500, it is less than what is available to us. And as you know, whenever we have goals, the first goal is that CP400 should exceed 200 units. So I can write it that x1 should be greater than or equal to 200, and in order to convert it into the equality, because it's a goal, I will write x1 is equal to 200 plus overachievement minus underachievement, which is nothing but 200 plus d1 positive minus d1 negative. And when you bring d1 positive and d1 negative to the left hand side, it will become, the equations will become like this. So similarly, you can formulate for every goal like this. And the next task is we need to decide which deviation variable we need to minimize, okay, because that is of our concern. We need to minimize that. For example, if I minimize the amount the state contract is not met, if I meet the state contract, that means if I overachieve the goal, that is fine with me, but I can't compromise with the, if the minimum amount is met, okay, that is something problematic for me. That is why I'm writing minimize the underachievement of the goal, which is minimize d1 negative. Then we have minimize the number under 500 computers are produced weekly, so that is why I need to minimize the underachievement again here. Minimize the amount under 250,000 if earned weekly. 250 100,000 is okay. So the goals here are that I need to minimize the something that is not under my consideration, which is so the first priority is that I want to meet the state contract, okay, which is minimum of 200. I have to actually meet a state contract of 200 CP400, which is the priority one. So that means if I overachieve it, fine, but if I underachieve it, that's not good for me. That is why I need to minimize the underachievement. That is why for priority one, the goal one, the priority is that to minimize the amount the state contract is not met, which is nothing but minimize D1 negative. Similarly, the goal 2 is make at least 500 total computers weekly. So if I make 600, 700, fine with me, but if I make less than that, that's a problem. So that is why I want to minimize the underachievement of this goal, and that's why it is minimize D2 negative. Minimize the amount. So the third goal is make at least $250,000 weekly. So if I make more than that, fine. If I $250,000 weekly, if I make more than that, then it is fine. If I do less than that, if I make less than that, then it's not good for me. So I have to minimize the underachievement here. That is why it is minimize D3 negative. And last, the fourth goal is to use no more than 400 man hours. So I do not want to overachieve this number. That's why I need to minimize my overachievement. Underachievement is fine with me. That is why minimize the man hours over 400 use weekly. That is the minimize D4 positive. And this is how the formulation will look like. Now we can use Excel as well as QM for Windows. Now I'm going to show it first on the Excel. For the demonstration purpose, I'm just going to delete all the existing sheets here. Okay, so as you know, when we solve for the first goal, and I have already created the template here, these are the decision variables. Okay, two variables which are of our interest, and other variables are the deviation variables. These are also treated as a decision variable here. Because we need to, Excel will automatically decide, the solver will automatically decide what are the best levels for the deviation variables. Now whatever is given here, I have written it in the their coefficients. If you can see, let me show you one. For example, 2x1 plus x2, I have written the coefficient. Similarly, let's take this particular goal constraint, which is x1 coefficient is 1. So x1 coefficient is 1 here, and D1 negative coefficient is +1, and D1 positive coefficient is -1. I have written like that, and you can populate this entire constraint area like this. Now right hand side of every constraint I have already written, and left hand side is nothing but the sum product, or these evaluated left hand side, which I have used the sum product function for that. Now our objective here is, the first objective in the problem is to minimize the amount that state contract is not met. That is the minimization of underachievement of the first goal, minimize D1 negative. So for that, the objective function becomes minimize D1 negative, and just hit enter. And now I can actually go to data, solve. I'm going to reset everything here. My objective is in this cell. Okay, B1, hit OK. I want to minimize it. What are the variable cells? These all are variable cells. What are the constraints? So first three constraints are of less than or equal to type, so that is why I selected them together, and I click on add. Rest of the constraints, which are goal constraints, they are of equality type, and I can select them together and click OK. Solver is simplex LP, and click on solve. So once you click on solve, you will see that solver has found a solution. What it says is that you should make x1 equal to 200, x2 equal to 400. I'm just gonna click OK here. But as of now, I'm not underachieving this goal. Okay, D1 negative is 0. I'm not overachieving this goal. If you look at the other deviation variables, it is for example D2 positive, which is the overachievement of the second goal. I am overachieving it by 100. So overachievement is fine with me for the second goal, but underachievement, I don't want underachievement. That is why I'm getting D2 negative. So it's good for me. Similarly, if you look at the third one, minimize the amount, I want to minimize the underachievement. I am not actually able to minimize underachievement completely. I'm not able to bring it down to 0. I am actually at 10. So right now, if I wanted to make 250,000, I am actually making only 240,000 because the terms here are given in the thousands. So right now, what I am achieving here is the profit of 240 instead of 250, because if I want to satisfy my first goal. Similarly, if I see here d4 negative is 0, that means I am not underachieving. Actually I wanted to underachieve because I had only maximum 400, so d4 negative is coming out to be 0. It is saying that you are not underachieving it, actually you are overachieving the goal. d4 positive is 400, so instead of 400, actually I am using 800 hours because I am overshooting by 400 here, d4 positive. So right now I've solved for the goal 1. What I can do is I can just copy this sheet again, and then I can solve it for the goal 2. Now the goal 2 is to minimize d2 negative. Okay, so I'm just gonna write here minimize d2 negative, and this will become, this particular cell will be my objective function now. And now, as you know that from previous problem, I have to fix the goal that I achieved earlier. So I achieved d1 negative equal to 0. Okay, so I'm just gonna write here d1 negative, because the coefficient is 1, it is equal to 0, because 0 is the objective function value that I achieved. And just scroll it down, sorry, drag it down, so that my constraint left hand side I can evaluate. Now go to data solver, now add the constraint that this left hand side should be equal to the goal that I have achieved, and click OK and click on solve. Okay, so solver found a solution. Just to differentiate that this is the new goal that I added, I'm just gonna highlight it in blue. Right now if you see here, the solution has not changed because that is the best it can give you. So it has ensured that your previous goal is intact, and this goal which you wanted to minimize d2 negative, actually this is 0, coming out to be 0. It cannot go beyond 0 because it's a deviation variable, right? And this is the best you can do for the goal 2, keeping goal 1 in mind. Now let's go for the goal 3 here. I'm gonna create a copy here, so goal 3. Now for goal 3, I want to minimize t3 negative. That is why I'm just gonna move it to t3 negative. This is t3 negative, and the thing here is that the previous goal also need to be remain intact. So d2 negative here, I'm just gonna write 1. It should be equal to 0 because this is what I achieved here. Okay, the objective function value. And just to differentiate, I'm gonna highlight it, go to data solver, add this particular constraint here. Okay, that this value LHS should be equal to RHS. I did not drag it, so yeah, now it is fine. So go to data solver, and the last constraint, yeah, it is added. Yeah, so the last constraint 15, yeah, this is added, that LHS should be equal to sorry, K15 actually should be changed. I'm going to delete it, and basically this value should be exactly equal to this value. Okay, because I want to keep my previous achievement of the goal intact. Hit OK, click on solve, and this is the best again we can get. So what I can get is right now again 200 and 400 of CP5, 400 and 500 respectively, and the underachievement that I'm getting is of the 10. So instead of 240.50, I'm making $240,000 of profit, and I'm underachieved by 10. Again, the solution has not changed because in order to keep the previous goal intact, this is the best I can get. And last, goal 4. What I need to do is add the constraint from the previous one. So in goal 4, I need to add one constraint, that d3 negative should be 10 only. Okay, I can't go beyond that. Obviously I can't improve it, so d3 negative it is actually equal to 10. Okay, why 10? Because I'm getting the 10 value from here. So the goal is now fixed, and I'm just gonna differentiate it by using some different color. And now objective will change, that D4 positive. Okay, this is what I want to minimize, overachievement. Then this is in J4, and if I want to delete the existing decision variables, that I can also do. And go to data, solver, add the newly added constraint into the solver, which is that this is equal to the deviation of 10, and click OK and solve it. So once you solve it, you will see that minimum, again the solution has not changed from the first goal itself. It is showing that the overachievement, you can't actually further minimize it. It will be 400 only. So that is how we solve the goal programming. So right now we have solved for all the 4 goals, the preemptive goal programming, and this is the final solution, 200 and 400. And these deviation variables are showing that which goal I am actually overachieving or which goal I am underachieving. Now, in order to solve this problem in QM for Windows, I'm gonna show you using this particular platform. It is relatively easy in QM for Windows how to solve the goal programming. You need not to do this iterative process again and again, iterative process basically. So in QM for Windows, go to module, and here you will see goal programming. Now click on new. If you do not see new here, just click on file and new. It is gonna ask how many number of goals or constraints. So in total, how many constraints you have, including the functional constraints as well as the goal constraints. Total I have 7. So I'm just gonna write here 7. It is asking how many number of variables. So number of variables I have only 2. Okay, these are the deviation variables. So that is why I'm just gonna keep it as a 2. If you want to change the row name, column name, okay, if you want to put goal constraint instead of goal constraint, you want to put your own name, you can put, but I'm just going by default. So click OK. Right now, first 3 are the functional constraint. Okay, they are not goal constraint. So I'm just gonna copy their coefficients and paste here. Since they are functional constraint, do not do anything in these cells. Okay, but for the remaining 4, which are the goal constraints, I'm gonna copy their coefficients, paste here, and as well as I'm gonna copy the right hand side. So all I'm doing is from the basic formulation. Okay, I'm not copy pasting from another formulations, just copying it from the basic formulation here. Now let's just look at the sign. The first constraint actually is of less than or equal to type. Okay, these are the functional constraints. These one. Okay, if I show you here, these constraints are of less than or equal to type. Remaining are the goal constraints, so they are actually equal to type. And now what we need to decide, tell it ki what is the priority. So for the first goal, it is very important for you to understand that how do we define the priority in QM for Windows. Here we have 2 type of deviations: weight priority for D positive and weight and priority for D negative. Let us understand by this process that how do we assign the goals here, the priority here. So the first goal is to minimize the amount the state contract is not met, which is minimization D negative. So D negative is of our concern here. So that is why I'm gonna write here, I'm gonna mention that the priority 1 is on the D negative. And priority 2 actually is again on the D2 negative, because this is the second goal. For the third goal, actually I'm interested in D3 negative. So that is why I'm just gonna go here, and D negative is my third priority. For the fourth goal or fourth priority, I'm interested in the positive deviation. So that is why I'm just gonna write here that I should give the fourth priority to the positive here for the seventh one. Now you also need to assign the weight to each deviation here. We can simply assign 1, 1, 1 and 1 here the weight to each deviation variable. Since I have not set priority on the positive side, I'm not going to touch that. Okay, so let it be 0 0 0, but since the priority 4 is on the positive side, I have written 4 here, and what is the weightage of that deviation variable? That is 1. So equal weightage to all deviation variable. That is how you can actually interpret it. Now once we have populated like this the entire you know inputs, then we click on solve, and once you solve it, and if you click here on summary under solutions, or you can double click here, you will see what are the final values. Okay, so the final value is 200 and 400 what we got from the Excel. The non-achievement, okay, priority 1 was D1 negative, so 0 0. So basically we have actually we are doing good in the goal 1 and goal 2 because that is what we wanted to minimize, and we are at 0. But for goal 3 and goal 4 actually we are not doing well. We are not achieving our goal 3 by 10. So I wanted to make $250,000. I'm just making $240,000 because the underachievement is 10. Here the priority 4 was the minimize the overachievement. Okay, this is also what is given here, overachievement. So priority 4 actually I'm overachieving the goal by 400. So in total I'm using actually 800 man hour. So that is how we use the Excel and QM for window to solve the goal programming problem. Thanks for watching.